The first time I saw the white SUV just nosed right into my driveway like it owned the place, I figured. Okay, simple mistake. Lost Uber driver. Confused out-of-towner. Something you deal with, right? I went next door, knocked, and the door swung open to reveal Karen. Not just any Karen. Our Karen, the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac. She crossed her arms, gave me that smug little chin tilt and said, "Oh, that's community parking now," just like that. Like declaring my private concrete slab a public utility was the same as labeling a trash can. I actually laughed. 'Cause what else do you do when reality just takes a vacation? But she didn't laugh back. She adjusted those ridiculous oversized sunglasses and said, "You should be proud to help out. Not everyone has the space." That was the moment. The exact click-in-place moment I knew this wasn't a mistake. This was a declaration of war. See, I bought this house 6 months prior specifically because of that driveway and the double garage. After years of apartment hell and parallel parking nightmares, that driveway wasn't just concrete to me. It was freedom. It was the end of circling like a shark. But to Karen, apparently, it was a blank check. By the next weekend, there were 3 cars parked across the bottom half, boxing me in like I was a prize steer in a corral. When I knocked again, she was out there with her clipboard. That thing was practically an extension of her personality. "We had a vote," she said, calm as a glacier. "The association agreed your driveway would serve as overflow parking. We'll be polite about it." Polite. As if trapping me in my own garage was neighborly etiquette. The absurdity ended on Monday morning. I had to leave for work, and a battered minivan was parked like a concrete roadblock. I called the number Karen had scribbled on a note taped to my mailbox, her so-called overflow list. A groggy voice picked up, mumbled, "Hold on, I'll tell my cousin," and hung up. 20 minutes later, the van moved. I was late. That's when I stopped finding it funny. I checked the HOA bylaws. Nothing. Driveways were personal property, period. So I confronted her in the street. "You don't have the authority, Karen. That's trespassing." She gave me that smile. You know, the one that's not really a smile. More like a threat dressed up for church. "We do what's best for the community," she chirped. "If you can't be part of the solution, maybe you're not a good fit here." That word, fit, hung in the air like smoke. It wasn't about rules. It was about control. The first real escalation came when I returned from work to find a neatly printed flyer taped to every mailbox. Community parking policy effective immediately. It wasn't signed by the board, just dripping with Karen's unmistakable passive-aggressive entitlement. My address was the designated spot for Zone C. I tore it down. 2 hours later, she was on my porch. "You can't remove official HOA notices," she snapped, tapping her clipboard like a judge's gavel. I just asked her which law school she'd graduated from. She called me hostile. That night, I parked my truck sideways, blocking any possible entry. The next morning, a note on my windshield. "Selfish? The HOA will find you." No signature, just pure, unadulterated entitlement. The irony was rich. I was the selfish one for defending my own property from trespassers. This wasn't about parking. This was Karen staking territory. She couldn't stand that my driveway represented independence, something she couldn't dictate. I started documenting. Every car, every plate, every time I was blocked. When she tried to corner me at the next HOA meeting, accusing me of undermining community spirit, I pulled up the slideshow on my phone. People shuffled, coughed awkwardly. But Karen, the practiced manipulator, turned the narrative instantly. "These photos are harassment. We need to address his behavior." Suddenly, I was on trial for defending my own house. The breaking point was a sleek black sedan parked diagonally across my driveway. No note, no number. Honked, knocked, waited 45 minutes. My groceries were melting, milk sweating, ice cream turning to soup. I had to haul everything, bag by bag, across the wet grass from the street. Cinematic image. Jackson, tired, defeated, carrying 2 heavy bags across the lawn. The trunk of his car is wide open, groceries visible, slowly succumbing to the heat. When the driver finally strolled up, Karen's nephew naturally, he just smirked. "Relax, man. It's just a driveway." That was the click. That wasn't inconvenience. That was humiliation. I researched everything. Police wouldn't help. Court would take months. I needed something immediate, unmistakable. That's when I stumbled on them. Driveway deterrence spikes. Low-profile retractable steel teeth, the kind used in private lots. Discreet, effective, and completely legal on private property if clearly marked. The idea lodged in my brain like a beautiful, wicked seed. I pictured the hiss of air leaving tires. I pictured Karen's face. It felt poetic. I ordered them. Heavy steel, retractable, designed to fold flat for me and pop up for unwanted guests. The shipping confirmation felt like a battle drum. While I waited, the situation hit a new low. Karen scheduled a community event on my block. I woke up to balloons and a dozen cars jammed into my driveway, spilling onto the grass. She strutted up, clipboard in hand. "Oh, good, you're here. We're using your space for family day." One day that ended with crushed flower beds, oil stains, and a dent in my garage door. When I demanded compensation, she smirked. "Accidents happen. Maybe you shouldn't have fragile plants." That night I stood in my garage staring at the dent until my jaw hurt from clenching. The next morning, the package arrived. I pulled on my gloves and dragged the crates into the daylight. I could feel Karen watching through her blinds like always. I didn't wave. She didn't either. We both knew something was shifting. It took hours to measure, drill, and anchor the system. The whine of the drill echoed off the cul-de-sac. A couple of neighbors slowed their walk, giving me that quiet nod, the one men exchange when they recognize a necessary, dirty job. By noon it was done. A neat line of steel ran across the mouth of my driveway. I stenciled bright yellow warning triangles. Legal but subtle. Image. A low-angle shot showing the spikes folded flat against the concrete, the sun catching the steel. A subtle yellow warning triangle is visible. I stood back. It didn't scream aggression. It whispered consequences. That evening, a silver sedan crept toward my house. The driver paused, saw the triangles, leaned out, cursed under his breath, and backed up. He parked 2 houses down. That hesitation, that retreat, was the first victory I'd had in months. But of course, Karen wouldn't let it lie. The next day, she cornered me by the mailbox, jabbing her pen at the driveway. "What is that contraption?" she demanded. "It's a protective measure for safety," I said, deliberately vague. She huffed, flipping her clipboard like she expected the answer to materialize in the fine print. "This is a violation of community aesthetics," she declared. I simply asked her to show me the bylaw about the aesthetics of driveways. She stammered. There wasn't one. I just walked away. Silence was my new weapon, but Karen couldn't tolerate silence. She had to reassert dominance. She filed a new motion at the HOA meeting. Hazardous installations. It failed, 6-5. She called the city code enforcement officer and the fire marshal. They both came, inspected the spikes, checked my permits, and both concluded, "You're fine. No violation. But expect more complaints." I shook their hands, the tightening coil of Karen's persistence settling in my gut. Over the next week, the sabotage piled up. Trash cans knocked over. Whispers that I was unstable. Then the egging. Instead of breaking, I doubled down. I installed a security camera above the garage, the red recording light blinking like an unblinking eye. The egging stopped the next day. The trash cans stayed upright. But the real escalation came when I returned home to find 3 cars parked on my driveway. Someone had folded the spikes flat. My lock mechanism, hidden near the garage wall, had been tampered with. That was it. That wasn't parking. That was trespassing inside my home. I pulled up the security feed. A grainy but unmistakable shot of Karen's nephew slipping into my garage after fiddling with the lock, waving the cars in like a twisted valet. The police officer's eyebrows shot up. This wasn't a civil matter anymore. This was breaking and entering. Then came the letters. Unsigned, shrill, stuffed under my door. Warnings of fines, threats of alienation. Then the fake "for sale" sign hammered into my lawn. She wanted the neighborhood to believe I was leaving. I just filed everything into a new folder. Exhibit B, then came the rot. I stepped outside to the stench of spoiled chicken and milk smeared across my concrete. Right in the middle was a laminated sign that read, "This is what happens when you divide the community. Who laminates their petty revenge?" That night at 2 a.m. the motion alert pinged. There she was, Karen in her pink robe and rollers dumping trash in my can. I clipped the footage, saved it. And the next day, I didn't confront her. I just smiled and waved. The silence drove her crazy. Her desperation fueled the final public act. She held a special HOA meeting on her front lawn, with a giant poster board of my house, spikes highlighted in red. I walked out, phone in hand. "Funny thing about accusations," I said loudly. "They look different when you see them on video." I played the trash dumping footage. The crowd gasped. Karen shrieked, "That's taken out of context." But half the audience stood up and walked away. The Queen's Court was crumbling, but the most critical shift came quietly. My neighbor, Alan, approached me one evening, slipping a USB drive into my hand like contraband. "She's been forging our signatures," he whispered. Inside were emails where Karen exaggerated support and twisted words. It was dynamite. The explosion came when I used that dynamite. I called a neighborhood meeting. Not a rally, but a professional forum. I let the HOA president chair it. I presented the timeline, the photos, the video of the trash dump, and the forged emails from Alan's USB. I didn't scream or gloat. I let the evidence speak. Cinematic climax, the verdict, HOA president, clearing throat, weary but firm. In light of the documented patterns of trespass, vandalism, and the evident forgery of community documents, the board has scheduled an emergency vote to remove Mrs. Whitmore from all committee roles pending investigation. Image. Karen's face twists in pure shock, her mouth open, the clipboard finally slipping from her hand and clattering onto the grass. The neighbors don't look at her with fear anymore, but with cold, satisfied contempt. The vote passed comfortably. The relief in the air was almost sweet, but humiliation makes people dangerous. A few nights later, someone slashed the sidewall of my truck. A deep, neat professional slice. I called the detective who had grown tired of this civil matter. The mud on the rim matched boots linked to Karen's nephew. The final nail. Her nephew, faced with the camera footage and his own conscience, defected. He gave me a second USB stick. Emails, recordings, proof she planned the whole thing. The summons arrived. Not for me, for her. Charges of criminal trespass, vandalism, and conspiracy. The courtroom felt sterile, but every detail of my driveway war was laid out. The laminated sign, the trash footage, the nephew's testimony. Karen sat at the defense table, smaller than I'd ever seen her, stripped of her clipboard and her power. The verdict: guilty on trespass and vandalism. The sentence: probation, fines, community service. But the real punishment was the silence. She still lives here, blinds drawn, eyes down. No clipboard in sight. She's just another neighbor stripped of her crown. My spikes stayed in the driveway. They gleam quietly in the sun, not as weapons anymore, but as boundaries. Because what Karen never understood was that the line between private property and community parking isn't drawn with a vote or a clipboard. It's drawn with patience, evidence, and strategy. I never had to scream. I never had to stoop to her level. And that was the ultimate victory. Call to action. This all started because one person felt entitled to another person's space. When does a simple HOA dispute stop being petty and start becoming criminal? And what's the right way to fight back? Anger or documentation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe for more HOA secrets, where the truth always finds a way out.